Hi everyone, in this video we're going to learn the basics of HTML. So there are 5 topics you need to understand in order to learn it. What is HTML? What is an HTML tag and which are the most widely used? What is an attribute? Which are the differences between block and inline elements? And what are semantic elements? So let's move on and see what we need to get started. We need a web browser to display the HTML and a text editor to write it. You can use any browser you want. I would highly recommend Google Chrome. In my opinion, is the best browser for web development. You can also use any text editor. I prefer Visual Studio Code, but if you have already installed Notepad++, it will be good enough for this course. Now let's start with a brief introduction and see what is HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the most widely used language to write web pages. As its name suggests, HTML is a markup language and not a programming language, which means you use HTML to simply structure the content of a web page with tags, and these HTML tags will tell a web browser how to display it. The latest version of HTML is HTML5, and throughout this course we'll use only this version. And one more important thing to add here is that HTML files must end with HTML extension. So in order to create an HTML file in Visual Studio Code, we go to File, New File, and by default it will create a plain text document. Now the next step is to save it. We go to File, Save As, choose the directory where you want to store it, give it a name, index, and save it as an HTML document. Now we can start to add our HTML code. First of all HTML documents must start with a document type declaration. As I said previously, the last version of HTML is HTML5, so this is the document type declaration for HTML5. This will help browser to understand the version of the HTML used in the document and to display the web pages correctly. Then, the HTML document itself begins with the HTML tag. The visual part of an HTML document is inserted inside the body tag. And the additional information or meta information will be added inside the head tag. Now, let's move on and see what is an HTML tag and which are the most widely used. An HTML tag is a set of characters surrounded by angle brackets. It's basically a command which will provide some instructions to the web browser on how to display its content. Most of the HTML tags come in pairs, having the opening tag and the closing tag. The closing tag is written like the opening tag but with a / inserted before the tag name. An opening tag, a closing tag, and the content inserted in between, it will create an HTML element. Some HTML elements will be displayed correctly even if you forget the end tag, but you can't rely on browser to display the content as you want it, because it might produce some unexpected result. So better do not forget the end tag. There are also a few empty HTML elements, which means that they don't have a closing tag, like break line element and horizontal line element. These empty elements can be also used like this, with a / inserted after the tag name. This is not required for HTML5, but it's recommended for a stricter validation. So the most common HTML tags are divs, span, paragraphs, headings from 1 to 6, unworded and ordered list items, hyperlinks, input, text area, buttons, labels, images, links, table, scripts, and styles. Now let's move on to the next topic and see what is an HTML attribute. An attribute is used to provide additional information about an element, and it's always placed inside the element's opening tag. As we see in this example, we have the source attribute, which contains the path to our image, and the alt attribute, which value will be displayed if the user, for some reasons, cannot view the image. Usually, an attribute has a name and a value, and all HTML elements can have attributes, so there are a lot of them, but you don't have to memorize them all. There are also some common attributes used very often, but the idea is that once you will practice and you'll use a specific HTML element, you'll see what attributes are available for it, and you'll pick up the one you need without learning them by heart. Now let's dive in and see what are block and inline elements. All HTML elements are divided in two groups, block and inline elements. A block element always starts on a new line and takes the full screen width available. On the other side, an inline element does not start on a new line and only takes as much width as necessary, allowing other elements to be in the same line with them. As you can see, in the first example, we have 4 paragraphs, which are block elements, and each of them starts on a new line. In the second example, we have 3 inline elements, a hyperlink, a span, and an input element, which only take as much width as they need without going on a new line. The most common block elements are paragraphs, header, divs, lists and list items, and forms. And the most common inline elements are spans, images, anchors. Here, I would like to add something about div and span elements. Div is a block element and it's used as a container for other HTML elements. For example, you have a section on a page that will have a title, a paragraph, and an image. And you want to group them in a single container in order to stylize and arrange it on the page easily. The span element is often used as a container for some text. For example, you have some words that you need to stress or highlight in a sentence. And the last topic of this course is what are semantic elements. These are elements that clearly describe their meaning to the browser and also to the developer. HTML5 offers new semantic elements to define different parts of the web page, like article, aside, details, caption, figure, summary, footer, header, main, mark, nav, and section. In the previous versions, developers had to create div elements with different IDs and classes in order to structure the content and stylize it. And because of that, for search engines, it was difficult to identify the correct web page content. By adding semantic tags to your document, you provide additional information which make it clear to the browser what is the meaning of your content. And this ensures that the search engines deliver the right pages for the right queries. So this is all for HTML basics. I hope you like this video. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know in the comments below and make sure to subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.